He did not leave with a fight. There was no shouting, no slammed doors, no final sentence that made everything clear. He didn't leave. He slowly disappeared. At first, nothing felt wrong. Messages still came. Calls still happened. His voice still sounded familiar. But the timing changed. Replies arrived later than usual. Conversations felt shorter, thinner, like they were losing oxygen. I told myself it was temporary. Work stress. A busy week. Life happens, right? That excuse became my shelter. It was easier to believe he was tired than to believe he was drifting away. I remember the moment I started noticing the silence between his words. Not silence on the phone, but emotional silence. The kind where someone answers you, that they are not really there. I would talk about my day, my thoughts, my feelings, and he would respond politely. Not deeply. Politely. There was a time when he asked questions. Real questions. He wanted to know how I felt, what I was thinking, what scared me, what excited me. He noticed the smallest changes in my voice. He knew when something was wrong before I said a word. Then one day, he didn't notice anymore. I found myself repeating things I had already told him. Important things. Emotional things. And he reacted like he was hearing them for the first time. That hurt more than I expected. It felt like proof that I was slowly becoming background noise in his life. So I adjusted. I spoke less. I asked fewer questions. I waited longer before texting. I convinced myself that love meant patience and that understanding meant tolerance. I told myself not to be demanding, not to be emotional, not to be too much. I started editing myself before speaking, filtering my thoughts so they would not overwhelm him. That is how disappearing works from the other side. One person fades out, and the other slowly erases parts of themselves, trying to keep what is already gone. He stopped making plans that involved the future. Everything became short-term. Next week. Tomorrow. Later. When I talked about dreams or possibilities, he changed the subject. When I talked about feelings, he listened the way someone listens to a podcast while driving. Present but not engaged. I started feeling lonely while still technically being in a relationship. That kind of loneliness is dangerous because it confuses you. You wonder how you can feel abandoned when the person is still there. That he was only there enough to keep me hoping. That is what made it so painful. He didn't disappear all at once. He stayed just close enough to keep me emotionally attached, while pulling away just far enough to avoid responsibility. That space between presence and absence became unbearable. Late at night, I stared at my phone more than I want to admit. Not because I wanted attention, but because I wanted reassurance. I wanted proof that I still mattered. Every minute without a message felt heavier. Silence from someone you love does not feel empty. It feels loud. People talk about ghosting, blocking, cutting contact. But no one talks enough about this kind of disappearance. The slow kind. The kind where the person stays, but the love leaves first. I started blaming myself. Maybe I asked for too much. Maybe I changed. Maybe I was not interesting anymore. I analyzed every message, every word, every pause. I searched for mistakes in myself instead of recognizing what was really happening. He was choosing distance, and I was choosing denial. One day, I realized I was always the one trying. Starting conversations, checking in, making space for him, adjusting my expectations. I was fighting for connection while he was quietly letting go. And then it hit me. When someone truly wants to be with you, you do not have to guess. You do not have to decode silence. You do not have to chase clarity. Love does not make you feel confused all the time. The realization did not come with anger. It came with exhaustion. A deep, quiet exhaustion that reached places sleep could not fix. I was tired of waiting, tired of hoping, tired of making excuses for someone who was no longer choosing me. The day I stopped waiting was not dramatic. There was no confrontation, no speech, No final message. I simply stopped checking my phone as much. I stopped adjusting myself. I stopped expecting him to return to who he used to be. I accepted the truth I had been avoiding. He didn't leave because leaving requires honesty. He disappeared because disappearing requires nothing. And choosing myself was the hardest and most necessary thing I have ever done. Healing did not happen overnight. Some days I missed him. Some days I missed the idea of him. But slowly something shifted. I started feeling lighter. Not because it did not hurt anymore, but because I was no longer fighting reality. I learned that closure does not always come from conversations. Sometimes it comes from clarity. Sometimes it comes from realizing that someone's absence is the answer you have been waiting for. If you are listening to this and it feels familiar, know this. You are not weak for staying as long as you did. You were loyal. You were hopeful. You were human. But you deserve someone who stays fully. Someone who shows up without being chased. Someone who does not slowly disappear and leave you questioning your worth. If this story touched you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps this message reach the people who need it most. And I want to ask you something. Have you ever experienced someone slowly disappearing from your life? How did it make you feel? Share your story in the comments. You never know who might feel less alone because of your words.